So, hello.
Hi, this is so cool. You made a Facebook group that is about like fasting slash fruitarian, raw vegan, and
Yoga.
also centered around
Yeah,
yoga. You did it. Very
yeah.
cool.
All we need.
Yeah.
So excited. Okay. So first of all, I want to introduce you to my viewers, to our viewers. So hi guys, I'm here with my online friend and also a participant of the group fasting I have created. And we are on a day 2 currently. And Patrick is a person who really takes care of his diet, and he's done many fastings and detoxes in his journey. So that's why I really appreciate having this interview with you. So please, can you tell me how you feel today? How is the day 2 for you?
Yeah, day two is feeling pretty good. It's you mentioned on your video you posted earlier today about hunger and about emotions.
Yeah.
And I can't agree more with the sentiment that you posted there that hunger isn't really the thing. That's like where I think a lot of people ask about that when or your friends, if your friends have never fasted and they hear, they're like, oh my god, and they think that the actual physical hunger is hard. And the funny thing is I think that's just such like 1% of the experience of fasting is the physical hunger. And pretty quickly your body adjusts to this new environment context where there's not a lot of nutrition coming in, and it's fine. Like that's something that in my journey, a learning for me, that I've become incredibly impressed with these bodies that we've been given. Like it's like you can we think we're brought up believing that it needs these very specific conditions in order
Yeah.
to feel good or be safe. And my healing journey has really blown away that belief. And it's like, no, like this body is really incredible. And what is the challenge then is the mind and the emotions, for sure. Yeah, yesterday, day one, I was really experiencing some just frustration and boredom and
Mhm.
anger is coming up. And the tough thing is always knowing, is this a result of the fasting or is this just part of my life?
Yeah, that's
And
the
second,
craziest thing. Like,
right?
is this me? This is really me without food, just because of
Hmm.
food? Wow. I also
Yeah,
think this way. It's it's not the food actually, it's our relationship with food, isn't it?
yeah,
Because we
yeah.
clearly can go on. Like I have energy, I can do anything, but it's the mind which
Hmm.
is playing.
Yeah,
So what would you say? Like, what's your relationship with food?
yeah. That is one that I have to like be candid about. I mean, you in your statement about I take really good care of my diet and have done lots of fasting. I have done lots over my like healing journey, as I guess you would specifically talk about it. I think started about um, it would be about 3.5 years ago now. And well, it's an ongoing thing, so maybe it started
Yeah.
many years ago, but specifically everything shifted quite drastically about 3.5 years ago. And I've done in that time a lot of I've done several 30-day juice fasts, and I've done several extended water fasts, like 3, 5, 7, 10 days. I did I think it was a 7-day dry fast, or was it a 5-day dry fast, which is an
Wow, that
amazing
must have been
experience.
intense.
It was I would say, easiest of all the fasts that I've done
Really?
because, yeah, well, um, Because, you know, at that point that I was doing it, you know, it was like a pyramid. Like I had a base built up of experience and was like refining it. And so when I got to
Mm-hmm.
that experience, I wasn't having a lot of these like um, withdrawal feelings or symptoms or fatigue. And it was just like, it was just this beautiful experience. And that was the most impactful in terms of giving me a sense of awe about the body. Like breaking, you know, you're told since you're like 7 years old, okay, the body goes this long without food and then this long
Yeah.
without water and then it's dead. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, just blowing that away, it made me feel so powerful as a independent being in control of my own destiny.
Yeah.
So that was and easiest at that point purely logistically. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do anything.
You have so much time when you don't have to eat, right?
You know, when you're doing the juice fast, it's so like my feeling thus far is that juice fasts are the most like um, enlivening and invigorating. For like they make you wake up and you feel wonderful and lovely,
Yeah.
and you're just being infused with this beautiful energy straight from the sun to the plants to you,
Yeah.
and but it's not easy logistically. You got to make that juice
Yeah.
all the time, and that's
Yeah.
juice and that's pulp and that's cleaning things, and or you're buying it from like somebody and you're paying like, you know, $10 per 8 ounces, and it's like
Yeah.
it's really expensive. So when you get into the water fasts, I mean, just from like a kind of laziness aspect, you're like, this is so much easier. And then imagine the dry fast, you're like,
Yeah. Don't do
you focus
anything.
and go. But that's, you know, the candor, the honesty here is like my journey has been like, you know, over the last
Mm-hmm.
3 years. Like I'm still figuring that out. And
Yeah.
what does that mean? What is that like lifestyle that I'm converging on? You
Yeah.
know, because
What's the
not just
balance?
always doing a fast.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I've
Like,
spent,
how do we keep this balance, you know? Because, of course, when we do the fast, we feel good. We feel good about ourselves. We feel strong.
yeah,
And we trying to work with our mind. We have the opportunity then. But what if we start eating again? You know, do we
hmm,
have this power to also be really conscious of what we actually doing, or we just let the emotions guide us, you know? So how do we
yeah,
find that balance?
yeah,
Because we cannot fast all the time, or you know,
right.
I think the worst would be when you fast because you cannot actually control yourself during everyday life, and then you just do the
Hmm.
fast just to make yourself feel better. So we definitely want to avoid that, because that's pretty emotional too. It's just like a runaway to a fast because it feels good. It becomes
Mm,
like a drug.
yeah.
So just to go into that journey really conscious, it's, I think, also challenging. Hmm.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like this is like one of the reasons I'm really excited about what you're doing here
Yeah.
in this group is I think that really the key is like motivation. Like
Yeah.
like finding the deep motivation that is driving you these behaviors, because these behaviors of fasting, various aspects, they are not um, in the current norm.
Hmm.
So it takes an enormous amount of personal effort and energy to go outside of that mainstream to do
Yeah.
something different. So there are people that are coming into this, myself included, have like big driving forces in them to break through and do these things. So what are those driving forces? And I don't think they're all um, equal. And I don't think
Yeah.
all of those motivating forces will lead us to success in what we're looking for here.
Okay. So how did you get into fasting, or when was the point in your life when you just like, okay, I need to change something? Like, what was your motivation then?
Yeah. So that like takes me back to like that point, like 3.5 years ago. Although I would say further back, there's a way in which this journey I'm on started more like 12 years ago. And I was really like out of shape and just not in a good place in my life. And I wanted to get in shape after a relationship. And I started looking around, and that's when I found the paleo diet. And I'm one of these people who, I mean, maybe there's a lot of people in the fasting community. Like when I find something and I believe in it, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this like 100%.
Yeah.
So I like went into like a year, 2 years of like strict paleo, not this like modern, like ketogenic, I'm going to eat like cheese and bacon, but like the author of the paleo diet, following that, like lean meats and all. And I did get quite a bit healthier in that time. But I did that paleo diet for like 5 years, less strict. And towards the end, I was getting sick, a lot. And it's really funny because looking back on that time, that last like 6 months to a year, I was really overweight. And I had it in my mind that I had to be paleo, and that was the healthy thing. And then I would be eating all these carbs, and then I would get up the energy to do it again. And I would like start eating bacon and eggs every day. And this cycle happened like bi-monthly for a year. I would start trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I would get sick.
Yeah.
I would literally get like sick. I wasn't at a point in time where I had realized, understood, which I think most of us in this modern culture have lost this understanding that like what you eat directly is whether or not you're getting sick. This is very applicable in this time, right?
Definitely.
And so I was like going through this cycle, and actually what changed it all was a convergence of events. A friend of mine was doing I'd kind of given up, and I was like, I don't know. I was just floating around. And a friend of mine started doing the Whole30 diet and asked me to join her. And it's like, okay, fine, I'll try. So I started on that Whole30 diet, and this was at a time that I was reading, what is the book? I wish I could remember, because there's a book that's like a spiritual book. It's a fictional book about like this main character's kind of walk through archaeological dig in like South America or something. And it's like an allegory, and it's also this personal story of this individual kind of like transcending. And there was this theme in the book. It never talked about veganism or vegetarianism, but there was this theme kind of like planted in the book about when the main character would eat food that was lighter and less dense, the main character would start having more like spiritual epiphanies and consciousness elevations. And then he would eat like denser food, and it would like, he would lose his ability to like see auras and I was like, that was happening. And then somebody posted on Facebook a post, and this was a friend I had, a casual acquaintance I had no idea he was vegan. And he just made this post and randomly was like, I've been vegan for so many years. I don't tell very many people, but I just repost this every once in a while to let other people, so if anybody else is influenced. And he posted a video by the woman in the vegan community who coined the term carnism. I don't know if you know her. I can't remember her name, but so there's this woman, and she gives this speech on, you can't have meat without violence. And I watched that, and it really made a big impact on me, because although I'm not like a practicing Christian religious person, like my ancestry are all the Mennonite people who are pacifists. They're Christians, but they're like committed pacifists who like
Yeah.
my ancestors died for this belief, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in pacifism. And it's really in my bones and my blood to believe in nonviolence. And so just this connection happened where I was like, I'm so proud of my nonviolence.
Yeah.
My belief in that as like a foundation to anything that I would believe in. But here, this person is right about this act of violence. And then I have this kind of other line of influence in this book that I'm reading, kind of what if there's some like spiritual progress that I could make by
Yeah.
changing my diet? And so I sat down one day and I just did a bunch of research and I was like, what do like spiritual people eat? And I like read about the Buddhists and the Jains, and I read that in many sects of Buddhism, they don't eat milk or honey because they believe these things are stolen. It's actually, it's based on the precept of do not steal.
Yeah.
Don't steal these things from these creatures. And I eventually, through like a day of internet investigation, wound up on the YouTube channel of Michael Arnstein, the ultra runner who called himself the fruitarian for a long time. And that was at a time when I was trying to start ultra running. And I watched like 8 hours of him talk about how the fruitarian diet helped him improve in every aspect of his life, including running. And, you know, the very next day I just went to the store, bought a bunch of fruit, and I didn't eat anything except for fruit for like 3 months or 4 months. And that was kind of the beginning. I like basically went, that was in the middle, that was like 10 days into the Whole30, which is 30 days.
Yeah.
And so I went straight from Whole30 and like a paleo diet straight to like fruitarianism for 3 months. And all of these like chronic symptoms I were having just cleared up. Like I was having this chronic.
So did you not have like any, let's say, side effects? Because, you know, when you really change from being, let's say, unhealthy to like fruit, it's a massive gap. Like, did you not have any reactions? So maybe you were just ready.
At the time, I did not have any like any kind of like healing crisis or adverse reactions. It was all just psychological.
Yeah.
And that was like so like many people work their way towards that, but like I like went directly there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And that worked for my personality because if I believe in something, I can do it. And like maybe things were happening and I was ignoring them, you know?
Yeah.
But
then clearly you had a lot of signs around you.
Yeah, but it just, and the biggest thing was though, I was sick. It felt like I was sick constantly. Like I was either sick or I had just been sick or I was about to get sick. It was like this in and out of sickness. I had this like, my eardrum had burst. There was this ear, nose, throat thing that none of the doctors would tell me how to heal.
Yeah.
And I had this skin condition, like dandruff, and my face was red and peeling underneath my beard. Obviously overweight was there. And like within just 3 months, all of that just like disappeared. And ever since I've been like, it's so hard to have this knowledge because nobody's ready for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of people, they already get introduced to those topics, but they scared and they just want to stay in their comfort zone, you know, because I don't even know why. Like I can tell you from what I see around in Bali, you know, I imagine Bali as being a paradise full of just fruit and health, and you know, people are just vital and beautiful shining lights, you know. And what I see here is just like the diet is super poor. Like all they eat is meat. Like their skin is really bad. Their health in general, they obese, and They smoke cigarettes nonstop. It's just like probably the most unhealthy place I've seen. And I lived in London before when, yeah, it says like people are unhealthy, but I feel like here people are really not aware. And every second person has like horrible skin condition
Mm,
and they don't get it. Like they don't realize that it's from what they put inside. It's just fried food and meat and rice, obviously. So none of it, and barely any even vegetables.
right.
So it's scary. But on the other hand, like there is plenty of beautiful restaurants with raw vegan food and fruit and smoothie
Hmm.
bowls and the most amazing and tasty and organic fruit. So it's
Yeah.
just like how the local people live to, let's say, people who come to Bali. It's just so different.
Mm.
And yeah, it's really sad, to see them being born in this paradise to just change and being so far from the nature. And
Well, it's a it's a puzzle. It's a conundrum that, once you're kind of into this information, it's very obvious,
yeah,
that if you're eating vital foods that are fresh and alive and you try it and it changes you, it becomes very obvious. But the puzzle is like, why are we not doing this in the first place?
yeah,
Like, as a culture, as a society, what has brought us
exactly.
here? And I mean, it's having empathy too, because if you're
Yeah.
not in that information and knowledge, it's you're trapped in a way,
But
and
you
you
know
can't see
what's
the other side.
yeah, that is true. But you know what's even more scary here, that a lot of people are already being aware that, okay, eating animals is not good, and there's so many documentaries now these days and people watch it and
Yeah.
they freak out, but and then they just ignore it. They like, okay, but I cannot stop, I like it. And I have
Mm.
an example of one person also who his skin condition was really really bad, like awful, like pimples just like everywhere. It's like scary. And then throughout the year, me being living here and having a contact with him, like his
Hmm.
skin condition improved so much because he started to introduce more fruit and more healthy foods in his
Hmm.
diet. But um he's been experimenting and trying to stop eating meat, going to a pescatarian diet and trying to be vegetarian. And it seems like it's just so in the mind, because there are times when he feels strong and he's okay and he really sees the improvement, like his skin clear out, and then even on the sides he had like build on skin. And it's kind of like absorbing when he's trying to eat healthy, but then
Hmm.
something in the mind switches and he's going back to eating meat again, saying that, oh, it's okay. So it's so weird that we can know all these things but still go back to the old habits because they are stronger.
Yeah.
And you want to be healthy, you want to take care of yourself, but at the same time you don't want to take any steps because it's just so into you. We are born this way. You have to eat meat, you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's just so strong in our
Mm.
subconscious somewhere that we don't want to let it go. So it's all, maybe, we're talking about fasting and how we um, feel the emotions, how we cannot, replace it or comfort ourselves with food. So maybe in this case
Yeah.
it's the same. It's just like some sort of running away and, well, comfort, even
Yeah.
though you know that this is hurting you, and your health.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're onto something there. It reminds me, like, from another perspective though, it reminds me, I have an 8-year-old
Yeah.
daughter, and parenting is this crazy incredible journey and lesson and growth experience. And this year I reached out for help. There's this really awesome organization called Hand in Hand Parenting, and they have this whole kind of parenting ideology, which and the one thing I want to like introduce from that is they have this idea that, you know, children ultimately, they want to please their parents. They want to like please the society around them. They don't want to be like behaving in ways that are inappropriate. But the problem is they describe it as like the limbic brain and the prefrontal brain, like the limbic brain being like the brain stem and all of like the emotions of need and comfort and food and sex. Well, not for children, but like just all the brain stem, basal, primal things. Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I held? Am I comforted? And their idea is if children's needs are not met there, if their limbic system is not calm and satisfied, they can't use their human prefrontal cortex. And so what we often see as bad behavior in children, it's not bad behavior, it's they have unmet needs.
Yeah.
Their kind of like animal brainstem body has unmet needs. So their brain is literally shut off, can't function. And so they do these things until, and what we do incorrectly as parents is we don't meet their needs when they're misbehaving. We like send them for a timeout when really you need to like hug them, meet their needs. This reminds me of what you're talking about. And I feel like it's really applicable because it's like, I do this. Maybe you have done this where you know the right thing to do for your body, but you need to eat that bag of chips and you just eat it. And then you feel terrible, but then you do it again the next day. And it's like, why? I think those diets, that heavy food, it's like a fake meeting of those needs.
Yeah. So
like we need that met though. We need as humans that connection and comfort. It's just when we get it from things that are false. That's
so what we're getting into now is just like probably 80% of food or this topic is just about emotions and the comfort and pleasure and many other things and not being able to let go.
Yeah.
Because if we're really thinking of nutrition and health, many food, we would not go for it, you know?
Yeah. Wow. But as it turns out, we're really many times messed up and complicated animals that, you know.
Yeah. So would you say that, you know, fasting or light, healthy food is affecting your consciousness?
I would say that it does. And going back to that, like candor about my position, I've been back and forth over the past 3 years. I've consistently been vegan. I've never gone back from that. But in terms of like eating the lighter foods and more towards fresh, whole living vegetable and fruit foods versus like junk food vegan, I mean, the difference is night and day. I mean, the difference is obvious when I'm eating lighter, vibrant, alive foods that are not heavy. Yeah, I mean, well, you could talk about physical or spiritual, but it definitely affects the consciousness. And you know, what does that even mean though?
Right, we try to
I will say this, like it has obvious impact on my yoga practice. And for me, the yoga practice is about developing the ability right now I'm in the place where it's about developing the ability to focus and quiet the mind. And the food parallel there is it's just measurable, you know, what I'm eating and what I can can I maintain that non-distracted focus during yoga practice, but also during daily life. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
I've noticed that whenever I feel happy, like
Mm,
fully just free and happy, most of the
mm,
times I even forget about food, you know? Like I'm good. I just grab some fruit, this and that. But when there
yeah.
is something bothering me, I can eat like tons of food in that day, which would probably last for the whole week, you know? So
Yeah.
it's definitely related to your emotional state. And also, if we're talking again about eating heavier or unhealthy, like a lot of times it just has to be this decision to just change, you know, and maybe it's not easy, but if we don't take or make that decision, then we're just gonna be in this constant loop, isn't it? Because it's the emotions in the it's the comfort, and then again, like we just having the same thoughts, we're not opening ourselves, we're not
Mm,
seeing ourselves.
yeah.
So I guess being just open and trying things out can bring a lot to the consciousness as well.
Yeah. I mean, in my journey over the last couple of years, I've thought often. You say it's a loop. I feel like for me, I think about it in terms of like the spiral. It's like
Yeah,
it's always spiraling, but is it going down or up?
yeah.
And like every decision you make, I think can change that direction.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And every decision you make is directional. Like
Yeah.
the each it's not just like, oh, that bag of chips, or I wake up and I have um, like a celery juice, or I wake up and I have nothing until 12 o'clock,
Yeah.
or I wake up and I order takeout from the diner down the street. All
Yeah.
of those, the trick of addiction, but the trick of karma, of action, is like we think the action is just independent, but it isn't. It
Yeah.
creates direction and it leads to the next act. So
Yeah.
my I keep wondering, I feel like I've experienced this up and down journey. And I keep wondering, like, I know that when you're spiraling down, sometimes you just have to spiral down,
To
like
just get back up and
until you hit a crisis point,
yeah.
or you hit a point where there's a good influence that comes in that sends you back up. But when you're in that downward spiral, things are not good, and they're not good,
Yeah.
and you keep perpetuating the direction with every decision you make,
Yeah.
and you're conscious of it. It's like an animal isn't conscious that they're doing that to themselves, but
Yeah.
you are, because you're a human.
Yeah.
And I keep wondering, like, if I'm gonna, if I were to give advice somehow once I understand how to break out of it, I think the advice I would want to give is like, what do you do during that time?
Hmm.
Because when you're spiraling up, you don't need advice, you know.
Yeah.
But when you're
You're
going
flying.
down, and you're going down, and you're making the wrong decisions for yourself, what do you do? Do you just rest in the comfort of knowing that your bottom will come, or do you wait? Is there something you can actually do? Is the best you can do to just be easy on yourself and wait? I don't know. That's kind of like my big $1 million
Mm.
question: is what do you do when you realize that you're making decisions which are like directionally perpetuating something that you don't want for yourself, but you're doing it anyway? So maybe you know the answer to
Mm.
that.
I wish. What I think is like it also depends how much of self motivation do you have, you know? Because sometimes you have these lower days and you do something which you know doesn't make you feel good, but you keep doing, and then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm being then you like literally observe yourself, and I'm being ridiculous. This is just like this I can change. And
Yeah.
then if
Yeah.
you feel okay, I'm done with this, like come on, why am I wasting my life? Why am I constantly making myself feel this way? then you
Mhm.
just, you know the steps, you know what you have to do
Right.
to feel yourself better. It's just, it's easy in a way, but you just
Yeah.
have to motivate yourself and make that decision. And obviously it's super easy to talk about it, but when you're
Yeah.
in this position, you just, whatever it is, if it about food or your emotions, sometimes you just feel like, I just want to cry. I just want to
Yeah.
cry and don't touch me. I want to cry for days. Where you actually, if you like take a breath, actually what's the best thing? When you just take a breath, when you start breathing, like honestly, it helps me a lot of times when I'm like
Mm.
frustrated or angry or in some sort of hectic situation, and I'm like, okay, stop, breathe. And when you just take this air
Mm.
into your in your body, and you just calm down and you see that everything is okay, you actually can be in
Yeah.
control of everything. You can respond to situation. You don't have to go so low just to feel better
Mhm.
afterwards.
I
So
like
yeah,
that because
breath
that's
really
like
helps.
I mean, we always tell people who are in trauma and in panic, that's like the classic advice is like
Yeah.
take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And why do we tell them that? And as you're saying it, like in this forum, I'm like, it's almost like that is the beginning of yoga.
Yeah.
And there is more going on, I think, um, than just physically when you slow down
Yeah.
and you take a deep breath and you reconnect with that. And that really is a fundamental part, if not the like the seed in the
Yeah.
middle
The
of the,
foundation.
it's like we're breathing, we're connecting with that, we're present to it.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of, I mean, the word gets tossed around loosely in the modern age, but there's a bit of magic to that. Like there's something coming into our bodies there
Yeah.
that's a healing force.
I actually made
And
like the whole interview with my friend from India, who's really interested in the mind and its patterns and things like that. And we talk a lot about breath and
mm,
how, yeah, it's a foundation of yoga as well. How the Asian yogis would say that we are born um, with a certain amount of breaths, and
yeah,
the quickest we breathe, the quickest we die. The quicker we breathe, the quicker we die. So it's really important to just work with that breath and be even aware of our breath, because we just constantly we breathe, it's natural. It's like we don't even realize. But if
right.
we take that breath with some sort of awareness, we can make it slower, and then mind is slower and the life is slower no matter what happens. We're going a bit off topic, but it's all
Well,
connected anyways, right?
yeah, I think it's super on topic though. I mean, I think the challenge that people face after day one. Like, I think
Yeah.
day one of any kind of fast is largely your body not wanting to change the momentum of the direction it's going and
Yeah.
telling you that, like, I don't like this, I don't like this. But,
Yeah.
like, maybe even hour one, like, but the very beginning for you, wherever you are in your stage, is just changing the body's momentum and direction, just like moving, pulling levers. Okay. But after that, invariably we're breaking into, I love what is it, there's the physical sheath, then there's like the energetic sheath
Yeah.
in yoga, and
Yeah.
we're going deeper.
Deeper.
And these are more powerful momentums with levers that aren't quite so obvious. And I think that's where most of us are. There's so many forums out there on the internet, right?
Yeah.
For raw diets and fasting. And you'd think that everybody in those forums would have achieved transcendence or whatever the goal is at this
Yeah.
point. But many of us are not. And why? Because I think it's not just physical.
So one more thing, just going back, like more, I guess, on this physical topic and physical, fasting.
Yeah.
So do you think you do it more for your body or for your mind, or it's just really combined?
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar question when people are like, are you vegan for the animals, or is it for your health, or what? And for me, the answer to that, it's the same as the answer you're asking. I mean, it's my experience of it has been triune. Like the physical healing aspect is obvious to me. Just science is hard. Doing things and measuring the results is really hard, but I feel like this is something that has been just obvious, the results that I can't ignore.
Yeah.
And then the ethical aspect, at least when we're just talking about the veganism part of it, not just the raw veganism, is just really also super obvious. Like,
it is. Like, it's all really obvious, and I don't understand why still most of the planet don't do it.
Well, if you believe that we are in the same position of a carnivore, which has to make the choice, do I kill and eat another being, or do I die? Well, yeah, okay, then maybe we end up in this position that we are, where we're like factory farming out meat, just eat it in conditions we hope are the best for those animals, but ultimately, we have to eat them. That's one thing. But if you totally take that argument away and you find out that, oh, actually, you're healthier and more vibrant and live longer and are less sick without meat and dairy, then, well, there's no argument there. And that's for me, it's like both. It's like they're both have become incredibly important. And then the third leg is my spiritual practice. Or maybe there's four, because psychological, I mean, there's a spectrum maybe the yogis have it right with the different sheaths. But that psychological and mental and emotional aspect bleeding into the spiritual aspect, I mean, those are all beneficiary practices in my life as a result of the diet. So, and I want them all. I mean, but I would say for me personally, I have come to realize about myself, I'm never going to be satisfied in this lifetime with physical success and emotional success, even ethical success. Like, there is ultimately, it might be my like religious upbringing that has taken root in me, but I think it's what I was born with is just, I'm just not going to be satisfied until I begin to understand or commune with the forces that have created this incredible, strange, paradoxical, obviously significant experience called life. Where did this come from? Why are we here in it? Right?
Yeah, and we go back to this question. Yeah. Why? I always wonder too.
Right? What are we doing here? Like,
why are we doing all this? Why are we talking about fasting? Why are we trying to do all this? For what?
So I think actually, I think to really be self-observant, I'd have to say, the biggest driving force, although probably the least tangible in impact or effect, is the spiritual aspect. Is like, this is a lever in one way. Like, and they talk about it in traditional classical Indian yoga, that what you eat there's the different doshas and what you eat. It impacts, and it is actually a tool in the yoga like tool chest of like karma yoga and asanas and meditation and spiritual reading and community gurus, and your diet is like one of the biggest levers in the classical Indian for the path of attaining union of consciousness with that source of consciousness that has created all of this. And isn't that what you want?
Yeah. So, because people always ask, why do you do this? Why do you torture yourself? Food is so much pleasure. And I think like what it is just you trying to fulfill yourself somehow. And the way to it is also by cleansing yourself, by feeling healthy, by feeling vital, by trying to understand more things. And again, by trying new things, you understand more things. And where you peel these layers and limitations from yourself, you also see more, and maybe you can understand more. But again, we will probably not be 100% satisfied because we still don't know who we are and why we're here. But I guess the more you dig in, the more fulfilled in this area you can feel as well.
I feel like the connection's slowing down a little bit. Is that just me or is that you? I think that might be your connection.
Yeah, maybe.
Looking at mine looks pretty good. Can you hear me okay still?
Yeah,
Am I breaking up
I can
a little?
still hear you. Well, maybe let's just conclude. How do we even do that?
Well, I mean, I can at least say, I am super grateful for you, Kinia,
Oh, thank you.
and what you're doing. I mean, I think partially an answer to my question about what do you do on that spiral downward, and maybe part of that answer is we need that external influence. We need community. We need conversation. We need information out there. And somehow, I mean, you are doing that right now with this work that you're doing, setting up this group. You're obviously putting a lot of energy into it. I know that takes a lot of focus, energy, and time, what you're doing. So I appreciate it. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm grateful that have brought me into the process here. And yeah, it's, the subject matter at hand, I think, is important for people that are going down this pathway from this perspective, that this is not all physical, that we're going to get into some emotional, psychological, and even like existential spiritual questions here on this path. And when we hit those walls, I think knowing ahead of time that this is not just, okay, I didn't just fail because I binge ate, I went and ate pizza or something on my fast and I can't do it. It's just too hard for me. It's like, no, this is actually an expected symptom that you have those momentums in the different aspects of your being, and you're going to turn back, but like, we're going to work through it and we're going to do it.
Would you say fasting can be for everyone? And how can we invite more people, who are scared of it, let's say?
I think the answer is absolutely yes. To what degree? I think totally depends on the person's comfort level, and that's what's beautiful about it. It's like this whole intermittent fasting thing is great. It's like, okay, just try this. Try not eating until 12. If somebody is like, I could never do that. Okay, try not eating until 10. That would be so hard. Okay,
so
can you not eat until 9?
Gradually going in.
Yeah. Can you, what can you do to give your body a little bit of time and then measure that impact? And I think
Yeah.
for anybody that does this experimentally on themselves, they'll see that impact, and it will be first degree knowledge. They don't have to trust anybody else. Trust yourself. Like, did it feel better? Do more of it. Did it not feel better? Do less of it. And yeah, and then see where the journey takes you. And that's where it's taken all of us, right?
Exactly. And I think that's just beautiful words to finish this amazing conversation with you. Just to experiment basically and stay open to
Yeah,
things, to fasting, to yourself, and to this beautiful
yeah,
journey of life. So again,
absolutely.
I'm really glad to have this conversation with you, and for your I'm really grateful for your time and for sharing
Yeah.
your experience, and I hope we can have more chat like this about different topics, or just whatever the conversation will bring us to.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope this comes to life, this little community, and
Yeah,
I hope it influences people and healing and going in new directions in their life that they've been waiting to go in. And happy to be a part of that. Hope to be a part of that. So yes, let's continue and let's chat again sometime. Thank you so much,
okay,
Kinia.
thank you so much. Have a great day, and let me know how you feel tomorrow. And
I will.
yeah, all right, bye bye.
Bye bye.